When I retired early at 51, people said, wow, you must have done everything right. The truth, I made mistakes. I made big mistakes. And if I had a chance to do it over, there are definitely things that I would change. Today, I want to share those lessons with you so you can avoid the pitfall, save yourself time, and maybe even retire sooner than I did. But before we dive in, let me ask you a question. If you could retire tomorrow, what's the first thing you do differently with your money or your career? Drop it in the comments. Yeah, folks, I love hearing your perspectives. When I first started working, I believed the same thing that most of us were told. Most of you were told. I know I was told work hard, climb the corporate ladder, and someday you'll be able to relax. And I didn't even question that for years. Looking back, I wish I challenged that sooner. Mistake number one, not investing early enough. I saved, but I wasn't investing aggressively enough. And compound interest is your best friend, but only if you start early. I was using money that I was saving to buy houses, to pay off debts, to get myself out from underwater from credit card debt, and all the things that in other videos I've said you shouldn't do with that money. Folks, I was doing that because I figured, well, in a couple years, I'll put that money right back. But now that I have a full understanding of compound interest, I understand that compound interest needs time and you can't have fits and starts and expect your money to continuously grow. And I was fortunate enough to figure that out later on in life, but that's 15, 20 years that I didn't have putting money aggressively into the markets. The second mistake that I made was thinking that income equals wealth. I earned as an executive. I made good money, but I wasn't focused on assets for a long time. And I should have been building streams of income outside of my paycheck. From an asset perspective, again, I mentioned I had bought a house and I have a rental property, but for a long time, I was just thinking, if I make a bunch of money, I can get a nice car. If I get a bunch of money, I could buy a bunch of nice things. And I had some cool stuff. Like I said, I used to have an Audi. I used to have all kinds of stuff. But as I got older, I started to realize that it's the assets and it's important to invest in things that are going to continue to make money for me. And fortunately, I didn't learn that's too late, but my goal is to help you understand that before it's too late for you or before you feel like it's too late for you because folks, it's never too late. But what about you? Do you feel like you started too late or did you start building your wealth early? Let me know. Again, let me know in the comments because this helps me understand you a lot better. Retiring early isn't just about the numbers either. It's about what you give up. And I don't know that I was fully prepared for that. Giving up identity at work. So much of who I was came from my title. I was the chief human resources officer. Before that, I was the director of human resources. I was the head of HR for hospitals, for logistics facilities. I was that guy. And letting all that go was a little bit harder than I expected because people that had normally taken my phone calls on the first ring, now they may not take my phone calls or they may call me back a little bit later. I used to get box suites at baseball games and basketball games and free golf and all those things. None of those things happen anymore. And that was a bit of a transition. I am going to say I was a little spoiled with some of that, but that was my identity. I was that guy. I was the person. I was like Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction. I solved problems, and the executives that I worked with knew that. The people that I worked with knew that, and everybody came to me when there was something, and they took care of me because I was there to help them through a bunch of problems. The other thing I miss is I miss out on social connections. Workplace friendships don't always survive after you leave. My wife would tell me that I'm what's called a relationship extender. When I make a relationship with somebody, my relationships were genuine. Now, they were genuine on my end, but sometimes when you're caught up in the mix, you don't realize that the transactional nature of some of those relationships that you're in and that the people around you are actually looking for what you can do for them. And the moment that you stop doing them, then you become less useful. If you don't have electricity and a power plug, then you're gonna start plugging your light into it. And I was the power plug for a lot of people. When that changes, some of your connectivity to some of the social connections changes. That was another adjustment. And I had to adjust to the time freedom. It sounds funny, but too much free time could be overwhelming at first. And I wish I had planned a little bit more for how I wanted to spend my days. Now, I'm doing some cool stuff. You can see I got my golf shirt on today. I was out golfing this morning, having a good old time, and I'm doing stuff. But it took me a little bit of a transition because as soon as I got out, it was weird because I had this ability to do whatever I wanted to do with my time. So I started to operate as though I had to do everything that I ever wanted to do right now. So that was overwhelming. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to be Chuck, chill out for a minute, sit back and do absolutely nothing. And that drove me nuts. And so it was really about finding the balance. The message here is make sure you think about the balance when you're looking at changing your time. I have a good friend of mine who's moving overseas. And one of the conversations I had with him is when you move overseas, it's great. And the money's going to be right. You're going to be able to live better. Your cost of living is going to be good. But take some time to contemplate the change in those relationships because when your circumstances change, even though it doesn't seem like, and people won't tell you that because it's not like people are wanting to do wrong, but you have to make sure that you contemplate the changes in those relationships, just like I'm talking about the changes in your time and having all of that freedom. Just contemplate some of the changes that are going to happen. I'm not saying everything's going to happen to everybody, but take some time to understand that and make sure that at least you're prepared for the fact that something's going to change and that you're going to have more time. Your social connections are going to change and your identity is going to shake up a little bit. So, what would I do differently, you ask? If I could go back, there's about four things that I would do, and I recommend each of you do these. Is number one, I would invest earlier and I would invest smarter. Even small amounts in my 20s would have changed the game. I did a video before about compound interest, and it shows a curve of how it grows. When you get your first $100,000, then the rest of the saving gets easier from that. Take a look because it really talks a lot about you make $1,000 a year for the first $10,000 and $10,000 a year at 100,000. Then at $500,000, you make $50,000 a year, so on and so forth. If you're invested, had I understood that and internalized that in my 20s, I'd be a rich man. Now I'm just an everyday retired cat. Number two, I would build my income streams. I would have a business. I would create some type of business, real estate, or something that gave me income beyond my job. Too many of us right now are relying on our jobs as our main source of income. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I lived like that for a lot of years. Most of us old school cats, that's the only thing we knew. But if I knew then what I know now, I would be focusing on building additional income streams and finding additional ways to make money besides my job. And we see this now is that even government jobs aren't safe. Jobs all around are being taken, the economy shifts. And I think when we're younger, we're shielded from that because some of us have our parents or some of us are in school or we're doing different things and we're able to find jobs. I would have had more income streams so that way I could have just stacked away, stacked away. Now, the one thing I did do is I was a DJ. So I had my DJ business and I was making good money on I was actually paying my rent with my DJ money at one point. But I find a small business and I would have really built some side income streams. Number three, I would have planned for life after work and not just retirement accounts. I've talked a lot about my personal mission statement to uplift the human condition, so I've always had that. But I'd also think about what community will I have? And I really overlooked that. I really overlooked the people that I had. I really overlooked some of the relationships that I had and the transactional nature of some of them and how some of those relationships changed over time or how they would change over time. Because again, when you don't really have as much to offer other people as maybe you did when you were at work, then that's painful for you. And so I would have taken some more time and planned around that, at least contemplated that, knowing that some of that's going to change and not have any issue. And then number four, and I think we all have a responsibility to do this, is that I think, and this is particularly important for people of color, for women, because people of color, we don't come from backgrounds of having economic prosperity. Women didn't have rights equal to men until the 70s, couldn't get credit in their own names. The reality is we didn't grow up talking about money because we didn't have a lot of money and the people around us didn't have a lot of money or they didn't think we needed a lot of money. And so I'm just going to say that money in a lot of these communities is often a closed topic. And so you got to talk about it and break the silence on money sooner rather than later. So when you get it, you understand it, you know what to do with it, you can save it, you can put it together. So I have a question for you. Which one of these do you wish you had done sooner? Investing earlier, creating side income, planning for life after work? Comment below with the number that resonates with you, because this is going to touch every one of those is going to touch one of us out there, whether we want to believe it or not. And if you don't want to believe it, fine. Y'all think it's bougie. I'm like, it's fine, but I'm trying to give you $1 million worth of game for 9.99. So here's the truth. I, in no way, in any bone in my body, regret retiring early, but I do wish I had been more intentional along the way. If you take nothing else from this video, remember this: retirement isn't just about the money you save, it's about the life that you are creating. And you can start shaping that life today. So if you found this video helpful in any way, give it a so more people could figure it out, could find it, can see the video. And if you're serious about retiring on your own terms, subscribe. If this is a journey that you want to go down, subscribe to the channel. I put out content every week, every Saturday. I put out and I take that video and I break it out into short form video so that we can listen to them on the way to work. But subscribe to the channel, and I guarantee you'll get a lot of information, and you go through the comments, because if you comment on the videos, what you'll see is that a bunch of other people comment on the videos, and there's just a whole bunch of GAME that's sitting in all of those comments, stuff that I don't even know, and I'm learning from each of you. So put stuff in the comments. I respond to every comment. I read every comment. I try to. Again, these comments take on a life of their own, but I try to I read all the comments, and I try to make sure that I respond to as many of them as I can. I try to respond to them all. And again, always know that this channel here is a safe space for all of us. And the idea isn't that we're all going to retire early, and that's not my expectation. Well, my expectation is that you live your best life. So I know this one's a little longer than I've been doing lately, but I thought it was really important to get this out to you. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.